The great hall of Castle Ravenscroft blazed with torchlight, shadows dancing across stone walls hung with tapestries depicting ancient battles and royal lineages. Servants scurried between long oak tables, bearing platters of roasted meats, freshly baked bread, and silver pitchers of wine. The feast to celebrate the return of Lord Ravenscroft's knights had drawn nobility from 3 counties, filling the hall with the murmur of conversation, occasional bursts of laughter, and the soft strumming of a minstrel's lute. Lady Tessa Lockwood sat at the high table, her slender fingers tracing the rim of her silver goblet. Though draped in azure silk and adorned with pearls that caught the firelight, her beauty seemed dimmed this evening, her thoughts clearly elsewhere. At 19, she was the most sought-after maiden in the county, yet remained unwed, a fact that caused her father, Lord Edmund Lockwood, considerable consternation. "You appear troubled, daughter," Lord Edmund whispered, leaning toward her. His beard, more grey than brown now, brushed against the fur trim of his ceremonial robe. "This feast is partly in your honour. Lord Ravenscroft has spared no expense." Tessa offered a practised smile. "Forgive me, father. The journey was tiring." In truth, her discomfort stemmed from the knowledge of why they had been invited. Lord Ravenscroft sought an alliance through marriage, her marriage, to his eldest son, a man she had met only once, 5 years prior. A man whose face she could scarcely recall. At the opposite end of the high table sat Sir Kieran Rushford, recently knighted after distinguishing himself in service to the crown. Unlike the other knights who boasted loudly of their exploits, Kieran ate quietly, occasionally glancing toward the hall entrance as if expecting someone. His dark hair fell in waves to his shoulders, and a fresh scar traced a thin line from temple to jaw, evidence of the battle that had earned him his spurs. "You've barely touched your wine," observed Sir Gareth, a red-faced knight seated beside him. "Still nursing that wound to your head? Or is it another wound that troubles you?" He laughed heartily at his own jest. Kieran offered a thin smile. "I find a clear head serves me better than a drunk one, even at feasts." "Ah, always the serious one," Gareth replied, already reaching for another serving of roasted peacock. "That's why the ladies find you so mysterious." Kieran's gaze inadvertently drifted to Lady Tessa. He had noticed her immediately upon entering the hall, it would have been impossible not to. But it wasn't merely her beauty that drew his attention. There was something in her demeanor, a reserved dignity that set her apart from the other ladies who tittered behind their hands and cast flirtatious glances at the knights. A sudden commotion at the hall entrance drew everyone's attention. Lord Ravenscroft rose from his seat, his voice booming across the hall. "My honoured guests! I present my son and heir, Sir Percival, returned at last from his pilgrimage to the Holy Land." A tall figure strode into the hall, flanked by 2 squires. Sir Percival Ravenscroft had his father's broad shoulders and commanding presence, though his face bore the weathered look of one who had travelled far and seen much. His gaze swept the hall before settling on the high table, and Lady Tessa. Kieran felt a knot form in his stomach. Of course. The rumours were true. Lord Ravenscroft intended to announce a betrothal this night. Tessa straightened in her chair as Sir Percival approached. She had been prepared for this moment, rehearsed the proper courtesies, steeled herself for the role she must play. Yet as the heir to Ravenscroft bowed before her, she found herself searching the hall until her eyes met Kieran's. For a moment, something unspoken passed between them, recognition, perhaps, or shared reluctance at the spectacle unfolding. Then Tessa lowered her gaze, returning her attention to Sir Percival's formal greeting. The feast continued with renewed vigour. Servants brought forth more delicacies, honey-glazed swan, venison pies, and sweet confections shaped like castles and dragons. Wine flowed freely, and the minstrels played livelier tunes. Sir Percival took the seat beside Tessa that had been conspicuously reserved for him, regaling her with tales of his travels. "Jerusalem is unlike anything you can imagine, my lady," he said, his voice carrying the confidence of one accustomed to being heard. "The sun there burns brighter, and the very air seems to hold the weight of centuries." Tessa nodded politely. "It must have been a profound journey." "Indeed. It changed me in ways I'm still discovering." His hand moved to cover hers on the table, a gesture too familiar for their brief acquaintance. I returned with a clearer vision of what matters most. She withdrew her hand under the pretense of reaching for her goblet. And what might that be, Sir Percival? Legacy. Continuing the noble bloodlines. Building something that endures beyond our brief lives. His smile did not reach his eyes. My father has spoken highly of the alliance our families might forge. Before she could respond, a commotion erupted from the lower tables. A young serving boy had tripped, spilling a pitcher of wine across a knight's lap. The knight, deep in his cups already, rose with a roar, his hand moving to the dagger at his belt. Sir Kieran was on his feet in an instant, stepping between the terrified boy and the enraged knight. "Steady, Sir William," Kieran said, his voice calm but carrying authority. The boy meant no harm. Sir William's face flushed darker. "You presume to interfere, Rushford? You may wear new spurs, but you're still the son of a minor lord." A tense silence fell over the hall. Kieran's lineage was respectable but modest. His father held only a small manor and had sent his son to serve as a page and then squire at Ravenscroft to secure a better future. "I presume nothing," Kieran replied evenly. "I merely suggest that a true knight shows mercy to those weaker than himself." For a moment, it seemed Sir William might draw his weapon, but Lord Ravenscroft's voice cut through the tension. "Well said, Sir Kieran. Come, Sir William, I'll have the servants bring you fresh garments and more wine for all." He gestured expansively. "Tonight is for celebration, not quarrels." The moment passed, but Tessa had watched the exchange with interest. As conversations resumed and Sir Percival launched into another tale of his exploits, she found her attention repeatedly drawn to Sir Kieran, who had returned to his seat without fanfare. Later, as musicians played for dancing, Tessa managed to slip away from the high table. The great hall had grown stifling, and she sought refuge in one of the small antechambers that opened off the main corridor. These rooms, normally used for private councils, stood empty during the feast. She entered one, relieved to find it unoccupied, and moved to the narrow window that overlooked the castle courtyard. The night air was cool against her face as she gazed at the stars scattered across the dark sky. "Forgive me, my lady. I did not realize the chamber was occupied." She turned to find Sir Kieran at the doorway, clearly about to withdraw. "No, please," she said quickly. "I was merely seeking a moment's quiet." He hesitated, then stepped inside, though he remained near the door, maintaining a respectful distance. As was I. The revelry grows rather overwhelming after a time. "Especially when one is the object of speculation," Tessa said, surprising herself with her candor. A faint smile crossed his face. "You've noticed the whispers, then? It would be difficult not to. My father has made little secret of his ambitions for an alliance with House Ravenscroft." Kieran nodded, his expression carefully neutral. "Sir Percival is considered a good match. His pilgrimage has added to his reputation. Yes, everyone speaks highly of him." She turned back to the window. "And yet, I find myself wondering what manner of man risks his life intervening between a drunken knight and a servant boy." When she looked back at him, his eyes had softened. "One who remembers being that servant boy, not so many years ago." "You served in the kitchens?" "For a time. I came to Ravenscroft at 9 years of age, and before I was deemed ready to train as a page, I worked wherever hands were needed." He shrugged. "It teaches humility, which some knights could benefit from remembering." Tessa studied him with new interest. "You speak your mind freely, Sir Kieran. Perhaps too freely. Another failing my mentors often noted." He stepped closer to the window, though still maintaining proper distance. "May I ask what troubles you, Lady Tessa? Beyond the obvious matter of being discussed like a prize mare at market." His bluntness startled a genuine laugh from her. "You truly do speak your mind. Only when I sense a kindred spirit might appreciate honesty." Their eyes met, and Tessa felt a curious flutter in her chest. "What troubles me is the path laid before me with no consideration for my wishes. I am to be bartered for an alliance, expected to bear heirs and manage a household, all without having seen more of the world than the distance between my father's lands and this castle. Not foolish, he said. Unusual, perhaps, but not foolish. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the distant sounds of the feast continuing in the great hall. We should return, Tessa said finally. My absence will be noted. Of course. He moved to open the door for her, then paused. Lady Tessa, if I might be so bold, not all men view marriage as merely a matter of alliance and heir-getting. Some seek a true partner in life's journey. Before she could respond, voices approached in the corridor. They stepped apart quickly, and moments later, Sir Percival appeared at the doorway, his expression darkening at the sight of them. Ah, there you are, Lady Tessa. Your father was concerned. His gaze shifted to Kieran. Sir Rushford. I trust you were just leaving. Of course, my lord. I was merely ensuring Lady Tessa did not lose her way in the castle passages. Kieran bowed to them both and departed without another word. Sir Percival offered his arm. Shall we return to the feast? My father prepares to make an announcement that I believe concerns us both. With a sinking heart, Tessa placed her hand on his arm. As they walked back toward the great hall, she glanced over her shoulder, catching a final glimpse of Sir Kieran disappearing around a corner. The following morning brought grey skies and a persistent drizzle that matched Tessa's mood perfectly. The betrothal had been announced amidst cheers and toasts, though she had noticed Sir Kieran's absence from the latter part of the feast. Now, as she sat with her lady's maid in the chamber allocated to her during their stay, she stared out at the rain-soaked courtyard. The blue gown for the hunt, my lady? Asked Agnes, her maid since childhood. Though I doubt there will be much hunting in this weather. The weather may clear, Tessa replied absently. But yes, the blue will do. Agnes studied her mistress with concern. You seem troubled, my lady. Is it the betrothal? Sir Percival seems a fine match. So everyone tells me. But you're not convinced. Tessa sighed. I hardly know him, Agnes. And what little I've seen. She trailed off, unwilling to voice her concerns. A knock at the door interrupted them. Agnes opened it to reveal a young page, who bowed nervously. Lady Tessa, Sir Percival requests your presence in the falconry. He wishes to show you his birds before the hunt. Tessa nodded. Tell him I shall join him shortly. When the page had gone, Agnes helped her into the blue gown and arranged her hair beneath a simple veil. Perhaps you'll find more to admire in Sir Percival today, she offered hopefully. Perhaps, Tessa replied, though she doubted it. The falconry stood apart from the main castle buildings, a long, low structure with separate chambers for different birds. The smell of damp feathers and fresh straw greeted Tessa as she entered, guided by another servant who promptly departed. Sir Percival stood at the far end, a magnificent peregrine falcon perched on his gloved wrist. Ah, Lady Tessa. I'm pleased you came. His smile seemed genuine enough. This is Artemis, the pride of my collection. I brought her egg back from the Holy Land. Tessa approached cautiously, admiring the bird's sleek feathers and fierce yellow eyes. She's beautiful. And deadly. He stroked the falcon's head with one finger. A perfect hunter. Like all females of her kind, she's larger and stronger than the males. Nature's way of ensuring the survival of the species. An interesting observation. He transferred the bird to a nearby perch. I hope last night's announcement pleased you. Our fathers have worked long toward this alliance. It was expected, she replied carefully. But not welcomed. His tone sharpened. I merely meant that it came as no surprise, my lord. He stepped closer, studying her face. You're a beautiful woman, Lady Tessa. Our children will have strong bloodlines from both sides. He reached out to touch her cheek. I hope you'll come to appreciate the honor of becoming the future Lady Ravenscroft. She stepped back, uncomfortable with his touch and his presumption. I understand my duty, Sir Percival. Something hardened in his eyes. Duty? Is that all you see in our match? We are strangers still, she said. In time, perhaps, time will certainly make you more amenable, he interrupted. My father assures me that even the most reluctant brides warm to their position eventually. Before she could respond to this disturbing statement, the door to the falconry opened, and Sir Kieran entered, then stopped abruptly upon seeing them. Forgive the intrusion, he said, his expression carefully neutral. Lord Ravenscroft sent me to inform you that the hunt has been postponed until the weather clears. He requests your presence in the Great Hall for the midday meal instead. Sir Percival's face darkened. You seem to appear at the most inconvenient moments, Rushford. Merely following orders, my lord. Kieran's gaze flickered briefly to Tessa, noting her discomfort. Then you may leave us. I'll escort Lady Tessa to the hall myself. Kieran hesitated, clearly reluctant to leave. It's quite all right, Tessa said, moving toward the door. I should return to my chambers first to change my shoes. These are ill-suited to the muddy courtyard. She stepped past Kieran, adding quietly, Thank you for the message, Sir Kieran. Outside, the rain had lessened to a fine mist. Tessa walked quickly, relieved when she heard Kieran's footsteps behind her rather than Percival's. My lady, he called softly, catching up. Are you well? She slowed her pace, allowing him to fall into step beside her. Well enough, Sir Kieran. Though I find my betrothed has an unsettling view of marriage. I feared as much. His voice was low, concerned. Sir Percival was always particular about his possessions. And that is what I am to be. A possession. She shook her head. My father believes he's secured my future, but I wonder what manner of future awaits me. They had reached a covered walkway that led back to the main keep. Kieran stopped, glancing around to ensure they were alone. Lady Tessa, I have no right to speak on this matter, but I feel I must. Sir Percival's reputation among the castle staff is troubling. He has a temper, particularly with those he considers beneath him. Like servants? Or wives? She asked shrewdly. He nodded grimly. I've seen the aftermath of his anger more than once. Tessa leaned against a stone pillar, suddenly weary. What choice do I have? The betrothal is announced. Both families expect the marriage to proceed. There are always choices, though rarely easy ones. He looked as if he might say more, but footsteps approached, and they quickly resumed walking. It was one of Lady Tessa's father's men-at-arms, who bowed hastily. My lady, your father requests your immediate presence. A messenger has arrived from your home. Tessa exchanged a worried glance with Kieran before following the guard. Something in his manner suggested the news was grave. She found her father in Lord Ravenscroft's private solar, his face ashen as he clutched a parchment bearing their family seal. Father? What's happened? Lord Edmund looked up, his eyes hollow with shock. Your mother has taken gravely ill. The physician fears. He couldn't finish the sentence. We must return home at once, Tessa said, her heart pounding with fear. Yes. Lord Ravenscroft has already ordered fresh horses prepared. He rose unsteadily. We leave within the hour. Lord Ravenscroft, standing by the window, turned to them. This is most unfortunate timing, but family must come first. The wedding plans can resume once Lady Lockwood recovers. Tessa barely heard him, her thoughts already racing ahead to the journey home and her mother's bedside. Within the hour, their small party had assembled in the courtyard. Sir Percival stood with his father, offering formal condolences and assurances that he would ride to their estate as soon as word came of Lady Lockwood's improvement. As servants secured the last of their belongings, Sir Kieran approached, leading his own saddled mount. Sir Kieran will accompany you, Lord Ravenscroft announced. The roads can be treacherous, and with your concern for Lady Lockwood, additional protection is warranted. Tessa couldn't help but feel relief at this news, though she kept her expression solemn as she thanked Lord Ravenscroft for his consideration. The journey that had taken 3 leisurely days on their arrival was completed in just over 1, pushing horses and riders to their limits. They arrived at Lockwood Manor as dusk fell on the second day, the familiar towers a welcome sight despite the circumstances. The household steward met them in the courtyard, his aged face lined with worry. "My lord, my lady, thank heaven you've returned so quickly." "How is she?" Lord Edmund demanded as he dismounted. "Holding on, my lord. The fever broke this morning, but she remains very weak." Tessa hurried inside without waiting to hear more, rushing through the halls to her mother's chambers. She paused at the door, steeling herself before entering. Lady Eleanor Lockwood lay propped against pillows, her once vibrant face now pale and thin. She turned at the sound of the door, her eyes lighting with recognition. "Tessa, my darling." Her voice was barely above a whisper. Tessa moved to the bedside, taking her mother's frail hand. "I'm here now, mother. All will be well." A weak smile. "Such certainty. You sound like your father. How do you feel?" "Truly? Better than yesterday. Worse than I'd like." She studied her daughter's face. "Tell me of Ravenscroft. Did the betrothal proceed as planned?" Tessa nodded, unwilling to burden her mother with her misgivings. "It did. Sir Percival has returned from his pilgrimage." "And? What manner of man will my daughter marry?" Before Tessa could form a diplomatic response, her father entered the chamber, followed by the household physician. Lord Edmund hurried to his wife's side, his usual stern demeanour replaced by naked concern as he bent to kiss her forehead. The physician, a grave-faced man named Master Thomas, gestured for Tessa to step aside with him. "The crisis has passed," he told her quietly, "but your mother's recovery will be slow. Her heart was strained by the fever." "But she will recover?" He hesitated. "With proper care and rest, yes. But she will never be as strong as before." He glanced at the couple on the bed. "Your father has not yet accepted this. He believes her will alone can restore her health." Tessa watched her parents, seeing for the first time the deep affection that lay beneath her father's commanding exterior. Whatever his faults, his love for her mother was genuine. "I'll ensure she gets the rest she needs," Tessa promised. Over the next fortnight, Tessa divided her time between nursing her mother and managing the household affairs that had fallen behind during Lady Eleanor's illness. Sir Kieran remained at Lockwood Manor, ostensibly as Lord Ravenscroft's representative, though he spent most of his time patrolling the estate boundaries with Lockwood's men-at-arms. One evening, as Tessa walked in the small herb garden outside the kitchen, seeking a moment's respite, she encountered Kieran returning from his patrol. "Sir Kieran," she greeted him. "I trust all is quiet on our borders." "Indeed, my lady. Your father's reputation ensures most would-be troublemakers keep their distance." He removed his riding gloves, studying her face. "You look tired. Mother had a difficult day." The physician increased her tonic, which helps her sleep but leaves her confused when she wakes. She sighed. "And a letter arrived from Ravenscroft. Sir Percival intends to visit next week to offer comfort in our time of need." Kieran's expression darkened. "So soon?" "Father seems pleased. He believes maintaining the betrothal schedule will give Mother something positive to focus on." "And what do you believe?" She plucked a sprig of lavender, rolling it between her fingers to release its calming scent. "I believe my father does not understand what recovering from near-death requires. And I believe Sir Percival comes to ensure his investment hasn't developed second thoughts." "You're not a merchant's goods to be inspected for flaws," Kieran said with unexpected heat. "In the marriage market, I'm afraid I am exactly that." She met his gaze directly. "You've been kind to remain here, Sir Kieran. Your presence has been a comfort." Something unspoken passed between them, a current of understanding that neither dared acknowledge fully. "I serve where I'm needed," he said finally. "And when Sir Percival arrives, will you return to Ravenscroft then?" "Not while your mother remains unwell. Lord Ravenscroft was explicit about ensuring your family's safety during this difficult time." Tessa nodded, relieved. "Then I shall see you at supper." She turned to go, but he called after her softly. Lady Tessa. If ever you need a friend, someone to speak freely with, I hope you know you may call upon me." She looked back, her heart suddenly lighter despite her weariness. "I do know, Sir Kieran. And I am grateful for it." Sir Percival arrived with a small retinue 5 days later, bearing gifts of exotic spices and fabrics from his travels, to aid Lady Lockwood's recovery, he explained, though the offering seemed better suited to impressing a future bride than comforting an ailing woman. Lord Edmund welcomed his future son-in-law warmly, ordering a special meal prepared despite Tessa's protests that such efforts strained the household staff already stretched thin by her mother's illness. "Appearances matter, Tessa," her father had insisted. "Sir Percival must see that we remain a strong house despite this temporary setback." That evening, as they dined in the great hall of Lockwood Manor, smaller and less grand than Ravenscroft's, but still impressive, Tessa noted the pointed absence of Sir Kieran. When she inquired, her father mentioned offhandedly that he had sent the knight to oversee a dispute with a tenant farmer. "Best to keep him occupied," Lord Edmund said quietly. Sir Percival mentioned some discomfort with his continued presence here. Tessa bit back a retort, focusing instead on maintaining a pleasant expression as Sir Percival regaled them with tales of his exploits in tournament competitions before his pilgrimage. "I've yet to be unseated in joust," he boasted, draining his wine cup for the 3rd time. "Though I admit I look forward to the challenge of the royal tournament next spring. As a married man by then, I'll carry my lady's favor for luck." He smiled at Tessa, though the expression didn't reach his eyes. "The wedding plans must wait until my wife is fully recovered," Lord Edmund said, though his tone suggested this would be a brief delay at most. "Of course." Sir Percival leaned toward Tessa. "Perhaps I might visit your mother tomorrow, to offer my personal well-wishes for her recovery." "She tires easily," Tessa replied. "Perhaps in a few days, if her strength improves." A flicker of annoyance crossed his face. Surely a brief visit from her future son-in-law would not overtax her. Before Tessa could respond, a commotion at the hall entrance drew their attention. Sir Kieran strode in, his cloak spattered with mud, his expression grim. "Forgive the interruption, my lord," he addressed Lord Edmund. "There's been an incident at the North Pasture. Cattle stolen, a shepherd injured." Lord Edmund rose, all thoughts of dinner forgotten. "How many taken?" "A dozen head, my lord. The shepherd tried to stop them and took an arrow in the shoulder. He managed to reach the estate bailiff with the news." "Outlaws?" Lord Edmund's face had flushed with anger. "Or raiders from across the border?" Kieran glanced at Sir Percival. "I've already sent riders to alert the nearest villages to be on guard." Sir Percival stood, his hand moving to the ornate sword at his hip. "We should organize a pursuit." "How long ago did this happen?" "Within the hour." "The men are preparing now." Lord Edmund nodded. "Sir Percival, your assistance would be most welcome. Sir Kieran knows our lands well, he can guide you to where the thieves are most likely to have gone." Tessa watched the two knights exchange measuring glances, neither particularly pleased with the arrangement but both too well-bred to object. "Of course," Sir Percival said smoothly. "I'll ready my men." Within half an hour, a party of armed men rode from Lockwood Manor, Sir Percival and Sir Kieran at their head. Tessa stood in the courtyard, a shawl pulled around her shoulders against the evening chill, watching until they disappeared down the road. "They'll be fine," said Agnes, who had come to stand beside her. "Sir Kieran won't let harm come to them." Tessa turned to her maid with a raised eyebrow. "You seem quite confident in his abilities." A blush crept up Agnes's neck. "The household staff speak highly of him. They say he's fair and skilled with a sword." "Yes, I imagine he is both those things." Tessa sighed. "I should check on Mother before retiring." She found Lady Eleanor awake but drowsy, propped against her pillows as her lady's maid read softly from a book of Psalms. "Tessa, dear. Come sit with me." Her mother patted the bed beside her. When Tessa had settled, she asked, "Where are the men rushing off to at this hour?" "Cattle thieves at the North Pasture. Father has gone with Sir Percival and Sir Kieran to recover them." Lady Eleanor studied her daughter's face. And how do you find your betrothed, now that you've had more time to know him? Tessa hesitated. Her mother had always been perceptive, and despite her illness, that hadn't changed. He is, much as one would expect. Accomplished, confident. But not kind, her mother finished. I hear things, even confined to this chamber. The servants whisper, and Madeline here, she nodded to her maid, keeps nothing from me. Mother, and this other knight, this Sir Kieran. He treats the servants well? Listens when others speak? Looks at you as if you hang the moon and stars. Tessa felt her face warm. Mother! Lady Eleanor smiled weakly. I was young once too, daughter. I recognize the signs. Her expression grew serious. Your father arranged my marriage as well, you know. I was fortunate, he proved a better man than his reputation suggested. But not all women are so lucky. What are you saying? Only that you should follow your heart, if you can. And if you cannot? She squeezed Tessa's hand. Then cultivate the strength to endure what cannot be changed. She closed her eyes, fatigue overtaking her. Promise you'll visit me again tomorrow. Of course, Mother. Tessa left her mother to rest, her mind troubled by the conversation. She had never considered that her mother's marriage might have been as arranged as her own. Her parents seemed so well matched, despite her father's occasional sternness. She retired to her chamber but found sleep elusive, her thoughts alternating between worry for the men pursuing the cattle thieves and her mother's veiled advice. Finally, near midnight, she heard the sound of horses in the courtyard and moved to her window, which overlooked the manor's main entrance. Torchlight illuminated the returning party, smaller than when they'd left, she noted with concern. As they dismounted, she recognized her father, Sir Percival, and with relief, Sir Kieran, though he seemed to be favoring one arm. Several of their men were missing, and there was no sign of recovered cattle. Unable to satisfy her curiosity from the window, Tessa pulled on a robe and made her way downstairs, arriving in the great hall as the men entered from the courtyard. Tessa, her father said, surprised. You should be abed. I heard your return and wanted to ensure all was well. She looked from face to face, noting their grim expressions. What happened? We tracked the thieves to the border, Lord Edmund explained, removing his mud-spattered cloak. But they had reinforcements waiting. We were outnumbered. 3 of our men were wounded, Sir Kieran added. I've sent them to the infirmary for treatment. Tessa noticed the bloodstain on his sleeve. You're injured as well. He shrugged it off. A scratch, nothing more. It would have been worse had I not intervened, Sir Percival said, pouring himself a generous cup of wine from the pitcher left on the table. One of the raiders nearly took his head off. You have my thanks, Kieran acknowledged stiffly. Lord Edmund sank into his chair at the head of the table, suddenly looking his age. We'll need to strengthen the northern patrols. This is the 3rd raid this season. Perhaps I could leave some of my men here when I return to Ravenscroft, Sir Percival offered. As a gesture of our alliance. A generous offer, Lord Edmund replied. We'll discuss it further tomorrow. For now, I think we all require rest. As the men prepared to disperse, Tessa approached Sir Kieran. You should have that arm tended to. Truly, my lady, it's nothing serious. Nonetheless, I would sleep better knowing it had been properly cleaned and bandaged. She gestured for him to follow her. The kitchen will have hot water and clean cloths. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded, following her through the manor to the kitchen, where the banked fire still provided enough heat to warm water. Tessa set about gathering supplies while Kieran removed his padded jerkin, wincing slightly as the movement pulled at his wound. Sit, she instructed, indicating a bench near the fire. He obeyed, rolling up his sleeve to reveal a shallow gash along his upper arm. Tessa worked in silence for a moment, cleaning the wound with gentle efficiency. You've done this before, he observed. My mother taught me basic healing. She believes every lady should know how to tend injuries, especially in houses where men are fond of hunting and combat. She applied a salve of honey and herbs. What really happened tonight? He glanced up, surprised by the direct question. Your father told you we were outnumbered. Yes, but there's more you're not saying. I can see it in your eyes. Kieran sighed. The thieves were expecting us. They knew exactly when to strike and where our patrol patterns were weakest. You suspect someone in the household? I don't know. But the timing is concerning. Tessa began wrapping a clean bandage around his arm. And Sir Percival? He acquitted himself well. A slight hesitation. He fought bravely. But he was reckless. Charged ahead without waiting for support. 2 men were wounded following him into what proved to be an ambush. She tied off the bandage, her fingers lingering perhaps a moment longer than necessary. There. That should heal cleanly if kept dry. Thank you, my lady. His voice had softened. They stood facing each other in the quiet kitchen, the only sound the occasional pop from the dying fire. Something unspoken hung in the air between them, a tension neither dared to acknowledge. I should return to my chamber, Tessa said finally. The household will rise early despite tonight's events. Of course. He stepped back, restoring a proper distance between them. Rest well, Lady Tessa. She nodded, turning to go, but paused at the door. Sir Kieran, be careful. I feel something is not right here. I will. And you as well, my lady. The next day brought clear skies and a bustling household, as if to compensate for the previous night's troubles. Lady Eleanor felt strong enough to be moved to a sitting room for part of the morning, a development that lifted everyone's spirits. Sir Percival made a point of presenting his gifts to Lady Lockwood personally, charming her with tales of the Holy Land that carefully omitted any violence or hardship. Tessa watched her mother's response, noting that while she smiled politely, her eyes remained evaluating, missing nothing. Later, as Tessa helped her mother back to her chamber for a rest, Lady Eleanor said quietly, "That young man wears his courtesy like a borrowed cloak. It sits ill upon him. You notice that as well?" Tessa asked, surprised by her mother's candor. "I've spent a lifetime reading men's characters, daughter. It becomes a necessary skill when one has little say in one's fate." She settled back against her pillows with a sigh. Your Sir Kieran, on the other hand, wears his honor more naturally. He's not my Sir Kieran, mother, Tessa protested, though she felt her cheeks warm. No? Pity. Lady Eleanor closed her eyes. He watches you when he thinks no one is looking. And you do the same to him. Tessa had no response to this uncomfortably accurate observation. That afternoon, as she supervised the preparation of medicinal herbs in the still room, Agnes approached with a message. Sir Percival requests your company for a ride, my lady. He says the fresh air would do you good after so many days tending your mother. Tessa hesitated. The last thing she wanted was to spend hours alone with her betrothed, but refusing without good reason would only create tension. Please inform Sir Percival I would be delighted, but can spare only an hour before I must return to my duties. Agnes nodded and hurried off. Tessa finished her work in the still room, then changed into a simple riding dress of dark green wool. When she arrived at the stables, she found not only Sir Percival waiting, but also her father and, to her surprise, Sir Kieran. Ah, daughter, Lord Edmund greeted her. Sir Percival suggested we all might benefit from fresh air. We'll ride to the East Meadow to check on the new lambs. Relief washed over her. A group outing was far preferable to the private ride she'd been dreading. As they rode out, Sir Percival maneuvered his mount beside hers, leaving her father and Sir Kieran to follow behind. You look lovely today, he said, his gaze traveling over her in a way that made her uncomfortable. Green suits you. Thank you, my lord. How is your man who was injured last night? Recovering well enough. He's endured worse. He guided his horse closer to hers. I've been thinking about our wedding. Spring would be ideal, perhaps May, when the apple blossoms are at their height. That seems hasty. My mother's recovery will take months. His smile tightened. Surely she wouldn't want her illness to delay your happiness? Besides, once we're wed, she could visit Ravenscroft to complete her convalescence. Our castle has excellent southern exposure, very healthful. You're kind to consider her, Tessa replied diplomatically, but I could not leave her while she remained so frail. Sir Percival's expression darkened momentarily before he mastered it. Of course, family duty comes first. It's one of the qualities I admire in you. They rode on, Tessa deflecting his increasingly direct comments about their future life together with non-committal responses. As they crested a small rise overlooking the east meadow, her father called a halt. The flock looks well, Lord Edmund observed, surveying the sheep and new lambs dotting the hillside below. Our shepherd has done a fine job despite the troubles. As they watched, a figure emerged from the small stone hut at the meadow's edge, an old man who waved up at them when he spotted their party. That's old Tom, Lord Edmund explained to Sir Percival. Been tending these flocks since before Tessa was born. Sir Percival nodded without much interest, his attention clearly elsewhere. After a few minutes of discussion about the estate's wool production, he suggested they continue riding, perhaps toward the forest to the south. Actually, Tessa said, I should return to the manor. I promised Mother I would read to her this afternoon. I'll escort Lady Tessa back, Sir Kieran offered. You and Sir Percival can continue your ride, my lord. Lord Edmund looked between them, then nodded. Very well. We'll return before supper. As Tessa and Kieran rode back toward the manor, she felt herself relaxing for the first time since they'd left the stables. Thank you, she said once they were out of earshot of the others. Though I fear my father will be subjected to more tales of tournament glory now. Kieran smiled. He seemed genuinely interested in Sir Percival's accounts last night. Father has always been impressed by martial prowess. It's why he sent my brother to train at court as soon as he was old enough. Her expression softened. Robert writes that he's been noticed by the king himself. Your brother is fortunate. Many young men would give much for such an opportunity. You didn't have such advantages. He shook his head. My father's lands are modest. I was sent to Ravenscroft at 9 to serve as page, then squire. I earned my knighthood through service rather than family connections. A harder path, but perhaps a more honorable one. They rode in companionable silence for a while, following a stream that wound its way back toward the manor. May I speak frankly, Lady Tessa? Kieran asked suddenly. You always do, Sir Kieran. I'm concerned about these cattle raids. They're too well-timed, too precise in targeting our weakest points. He glanced at her. Has Sir Percival asked many questions about the estate's defences? She considered this. Not directly. But he did spend considerable time with Father's steward yesterday, reviewing estate matters. Innocent enough on its own. His brow furrowed. But combined with other observations? You suspect him of some involvement with the raiders? Tessa asked, shocked. I have no proof. Only a soldier's instinct that something isn't right. He guided his horse closer to hers. Promise me you'll be careful. Watch what you say around him. I already do, she admitted. Something about him makes me uneasy. They had reached the edge of the manor grounds, where other ears might overhear them. Kieran fell silent, resuming the proper distance between their horses as they approached the stables. As they dismounted, he asked quietly, will you truly read to your mother this afternoon? Yes. It settles her mind and helps her sleep more peacefully. She is fortunate to have such a devoted daughter. His eyes met hers. Lady Tessa, whatever happens, know that he was interrupted by the approach of the stable master, come to take their horses. The moment broken, Kieran bowed formally and excused himself to check on the wounded men from the previous night's encounter. Tessa watched him go, her heart troubled by their conversation. Could Sir Percival truly be connected to the raids on her father's lands? The idea seemed far-fetched. What would he gain from harming the estate he would one day be connected to through marriage? And yet, something about him had never felt quite right to her. She resolved to watch more carefully in the days ahead. That evening, after a quiet supper with just her mother, Tessa retired early, claiming fatigue from the day's activities. In truth, she wished to avoid another meal spent deflecting Sir Percival's increasingly possessive comments and her father's obvious approval of them. She had just settled with a book when Agnes entered, her expression worried. "My lady, there's a message from Sir Kieran. He asks if you might meet him in the chapel. He says it's urgent." Tessa frowned. "The chapel? At this hour?" "He said it was the only place he could be certain of privacy." Agnes lowered her voice. "Shall I tell him you'll come?" After a moment's hesitation, Tessa nodded. "Yes. But I'll need my cloak, the chapel will be cold at night." The small stone chapel stood a short distance from the main house, connected by a covered walkway. Used primarily for morning prayers and private devotions, it would indeed be deserted at this late hour. Tessa made her way there cautiously, a single candle lighting her path. She found Kieran waiting near the altar, his expression grave in the flickering light of the sanctuary lamp. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. "I apologize for the unusual meeting place. Agnes said you needed privacy. What's happened?" He glanced toward the chapel door, ensuring they were truly alone. "I've discovered something troubling. One of Sir Percival's men was caught speaking with a stranger at the village tavern this evening. My man overheard them discussing patrol schedules for the western boundary, exactly where our weakest defenses lie." Tessa felt her blood run cold. "You think another raid is planned?" "I'm almost certain of it. But more concerning is Sir Percival's involvement." He stepped closer. "Lady Tessa, I believe he may be orchestrating these raids to weaken your father's position before the marriage." "But why?" "The alliance benefits his family as much as ours. Perhaps he wants more favorable terms. Or perhaps he simply enjoys the power it gives him." Kieran ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I have no concrete proof to take to your father, only the word of my man against Sir Percival's." Tessa moved to one of the stone benches, sitting as her mind worked through the implications. "If you're right, we need evidence that father cannot dismiss." "Exactly. Which is why I need your help." He sat beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. "I believe there will be another raid tomorrow night. I want to set a trap, but I need to ensure Sir Percival suspects nothing. What would you have me do?" "Keep him occupied tomorrow evening. Perhaps suggest showing him your father's collection of manuscripts. I've noticed he has little interest in scholarly pursuits, is likely to be bored and retire early." Tessa nodded slowly. "I can do that." "And then?" "Then I'll lead a small party of men I trust to intercept the raiders. If we're fortunate, we'll capture one who can testify to Sir Percival's involvement." They discussed the details for several more minutes before Tessa rose to leave, conscious of how long they'd been alone together. "Be careful," she said at the chapel door. "If Sir Percival suspects you know anything. I've survived worse dangers." His smile was reassuring, but his eyes remained serious. "Until tomorrow, my lady." The following day passed with excruciating slowness. Tessa divided her time between her mother's chamber and household duties, avoiding Sir Percival as much as possible until evening approached. At supper, she made a point of engaging him in conversation, asking about his family's ancestral home and expressing interest in seeing it after their marriage. "Perhaps we could tour the grounds tomorrow," she suggested, forcing warmth into her voice. "I've heard your family's gardens are renowned throughout the county." Sir Percival seemed pleased by her apparent change in attitude. "I would be delighted to show you anything that interests you, my dear. Though I had planned to ride with your father to inspect the western boundary tomorrow." "Oh." Tessa kept her expression neutral. "Is there some concern?" "Merely precautionary, after the recent troubles." He smiled, reaching for his wine. "But it can wait another day if you prefer my company." "Actually," Lord Edmund interjected, "I've been meaning to show you my collection of illuminated manuscripts, Percival. Tessa mentioned your interest in such things." Sir Percival shot Tessa a look of mild surprise before smoothly responding, "Indeed, I would be honored to view them." After the meal, the three retired to Lord Edmund's private study, where he proudly displayed several beautifully illustrated religious texts acquired over years of careful collection. Tessa watched as Sir Percival feigned interest, noting how his attention wandered whenever her father launched into detailed explanations of a particular manuscript's provenance. As she had hoped, after an hour of this, he politely excused himself, claiming fatigue from the day's activities. "Will you join us for morning prayers in the chapel tomorrow?" Lord Edmund asked as Sir Percival prepared to leave. "Of course, my lord. I would not miss it." He bowed to them both, his gaze lingering on Tessa. "Until tomorrow, then." When he had gone, Lord Edmund turned to his daughter with a smile. "He seems more attentive to you today. Perhaps you're warming to each other at last." "Perhaps," she replied non-committally. "Father, may I ask you something?" "Of course, child." "Why did you choose Sir Percival? Were there not other alliances that might have served our family?" Lord Edmund seemed surprised by the question. "Ravenscroft is a powerful house, and Sir Percival is its heir. The match elevates our standing considerably." He studied her face. "Does he displease you so much?" Tessa chose her words carefully. "I find him difficult to know. He shows one face to you, another to me, and yet another to the servants. All men do, to some extent. It's the nature of rank and responsibility." He patted her hand. "Give him time, Tessa. Marriage is an adjustment for both parties." She nodded, knowing further argument would only make him suspicious. "I should check on Mother before retiring. Good night, Father." After ensuring her mother was comfortably settled for the night, Tessa returned to her own chamber, too anxious to sleep. She paced by the window, watching the moonlit courtyard below for any sign of Kieran and his men departing. Eventually, she saw them, 5 figures moving quietly toward the stables, Kieran's tall form easily recognizable among them. She offered a silent prayer for their safety before finally seeking her bed, though sleep remained elusive. Sometime in the deepest part of the night, Tessa was startled awake by a commotion in the courtyard. She rushed to her window to see torches moving below and the sound of men's voices raised in argument. Throwing on a robe, she hurried downstairs, arriving in the great hall just as Sir Kieran and her father entered from outside. "What's happened?" she asked, taking in their grim expressions and the blood staining Kieran's tunic. Lord Edmund turned to her, his face ashen in the torchlight. "There was another raid. Sir Kieran and his men intercepted them, but—" He shook his head, unable to continue. "3 men dead," Kieran finished quietly. 2 of ours, 1 of theirs. The raiders escaped, except for the one we killed." His eyes met hers, communicating something he couldn't say aloud with her father present. "But we did learn something important." "What?" Lord Edmund demanded. "Speak plainly, man." Kieran hesitated. "My lord, I think this conversation should include Sir Percival." "He's not here," one of the household guards spoke up. "His chamber is empty, and his horse is gone from the stables." A heavy silence fell over the hall as the implication sank in. "You suspect him," Lord Edmund said slowly, looking between Kieran and his daughter. "That's why you set this trap tonight." Kieran nodded grimly. "The raider we killed carried this." He held out a small object, a ring bearing the Ravenscroft crest. "It appears Sir Percival has been orchestrating these attacks to weaken your position, my lord. I believe he planned to force more favorable marriage terms once your resources were strained." Lord Edmund took the ring, studying it with increasing fury. "And now he's fled. The coward! He may seek refuge at Ravenscroft," Kieran suggested. "Though Lord Ravenscroft is an honourable man, I doubt he knew of his son's schemes." "Send riders at first light," Lord Edmund ordered. "I want him found and brought to answer for this treachery." As the men dispersed to tend to the wounded and prepare messages, Tessa approached Kieran. "You're injured again," she said, noting the blood on his sleeve. "Nothing serious. One of the raiders had a knife." His voice lowered. I'm sorry we couldn't capture one alive to testify. The ring may not be enough proof for Lord Ravenscroft. But it's enough for my father." She glanced to where Lord Edmund stood issuing orders, his earlier admiration for Sir Percival now transformed to rage. "Thank you for exposing this plot before it was too late." Kieran nodded, understanding what she couldn't say. "Your father will likely end the betrothal once Sir Percival's involvement is proven. You'll be free of him." "And what of you?" she asked softly. "Will you return to Ravenscroft once this is settled?" "I serve at Lord Ravenscroft's pleasure. If he believes my actions tonight betrayed his son, I may find myself without a position." The thought sent a chill through her. "Surely he would not punish you for uncovering treachery." "We shall see." He offered a tired smile. "For now, there are wounded men to tend to and preparations to make. You should return to your chamber, my lady. The morning will bring many difficult conversations." She knew he was right, but leaving felt wrong somehow. "Sir Kieran, be careful. If Sir Percival learns you were responsible for exposing him, I'll keep my sword close." His eyes softened as they met hers. "Rest now, Lady Tessa. All will look clearer by daylight." Dawn brought rain and a household in disarray. Messengers were dispatched to Ravenscroft with letters explaining the situation, while guards were doubled on all approaches to Lockwood Manor. Sir Percival had indeed fled, though no one could say exactly when he had left or in which direction. Tessa found her mother already awake when she visited her chamber, clearly aware that something significant had happened. "Tell me everything," Lady Eleanor insisted, more alert than Tessa had seen her in weeks. "The servants are whispering of raids and treachery." Tessa recounted the events of the night before, including Sir Kieran's suspicions and Sir Percival's disappearance. When she finished, her mother was silent for a long moment. "So the betrothal will be broken," she said finally. "Father has not said so explicitly, but yes, I believe it will." Lady Eleanor's lips curved in a slight smile. "Good. He was not worthy of you, daughter. You never liked him. I never trusted him. There's a difference." She reached for Tessa's hand. "And this Sir Kieran? He risked much to expose this plot." "He did." Tessa felt her cheeks warm under her mother's knowing gaze. "A man of honor, then. Those are rare enough in any rank." Lady Eleanor settled back against her pillows. "Your father will be in a state about this, his pride wounded as much as his trust. Be patient with him." Tessa spent the morning helping to organize care for the wounded men while her father closeted himself with his steward and senior household knights, planning their response should Ravenscroft reject their accusations against Sir Percival. By midday, the rain had cleared, but there was no word from the messengers who had ridden to Ravenscroft at dawn. Kieran had ridden out with a small party to search the surrounding countryside for any sign of Sir Percival or the raiders. They returned in the late afternoon, mud-splattered and weary, having found nothing but hoofprints leading toward the border. His likely fled to his mother's family in the north, Kieran reported to Lord Edmund. They hold lands beyond the king's direct authority. Lord Edmund's expression darkened. So he escapes justice. For now, perhaps. But word of his treachery will spread. No honorable house will ally with him after this. As evening approached, a lone rider was spotted approaching the manor. The household guard assembled, expecting trouble, but it was one of their own messengers returning from Ravenscroft. Lord Edmund received him in the great hall, with Tessa and Kieran present to hear his report. "Lord Ravenscroft was shocked by our news, my lord," the messenger began. "He knew nothing of his son's actions and expressed deep regret for the harm done to your house." "And the betrothal?" Lord Edmund asked. "He considers it dissolved, with apologies. Furthermore, he has disowned Sir Percival until he returns to face judgment for his crimes." The messenger handed over a sealed letter. "He sends this with his personal assurances of continued friendship between our houses." Lord Edmund broke the seal and read silently, his expression gradually softening. "It seems Lord Ravenscroft values honor above blood. He asks that Sir Kieran remain here as his representative until this matter is fully resolved. Tessa felt a surge of relief, though she kept her expression neutral. There is one more thing, my lord, the messenger added. Lord Ravenscroft mentioned that his younger son, Sir Giles, has returned from court service. He made no direct suggestion, but he offers a replacement alliance, Lord Edmund concluded, understanding the unspoken implication. Interesting. Tessa tensed. Had one unwanted betrothal merely been exchanged for another? Later that evening, as the household began to settle from the day's upheaval, Tessa sought out the chapel once more, needing a quiet place to sort through her thoughts. She found Kieran already there, kneeling before the small altar in prayer. He rose when he heard her enter, offering a respectful bow. Lady Tessa. I didn't expect to find you here at this hour. Nor are you. She moved to sit on one of the stone benches. I needed somewhere peaceful to think. As did I. He remained standing, maintaining the proper distance between them now that the immediate crisis had passed. Your father spoke with me after the messenger left. Lord Ravenscroft has asked me to remain here indefinitely. I heard. Are you pleased with the arrangement? I am. His gaze met hers steadily. Though I wonder how you feel about Lord Ravenscroft's implied offer regarding his younger son. Tessa sighed. Another arrangement, another alliance. Nothing has truly changed. Perhaps. He stepped closer, then seemed to think better of it. Lady Tessa, I have no right to speak on such matters, but when has that stopped you before? She asked, a small smile playing at her lips despite her troubled thoughts. He returned the smile briefly before growing serious again. Sir Giles is known to be a scholarly man, more interested in books than warfare. He served the King's Chancellor rather than fighting in the northern campaigns. He is not his brother. You know him well. We were pages together before our paths diverged. Kieran's voice softened. He was always kind, even to those of lesser rank. He would not plot against your family or force his attentions where they're not welcomed. Tessa absorbed this, understanding what Kieran was trying to tell her. So you believe I should accept this new arrangement? I believe you should meet him before making any decision. And I believe your father may be more willing to consider your wishes after this experience. He hesitated. Your happiness matters, Lady Tessa. More than you may realize. The sincerity in his voice warmed her heart, though she knew the vast distance between what she truly wanted and what duty would likely require. Thank you for your counsel, Sir Kieran. As always, you speak honestly when others would flatter or deceive. He bowed his head slightly. It's late. Allow me to escort you back to the main house. As they walked together through the moonlit courtyard, Tessa felt a strange peace settling over her. The future remained uncertain, but Sir Percival's treachery had been exposed before she had bound herself to him forever. Whatever came next, she would face it with clearer eyes. Sir Kieran, she said as they reached the entrance to the main house, I never properly thanked you for what you risked to protect my family. No thanks are needed, my lady. I did only what honor required. Honor, she repeated softly. A simple word for such a rare quality. Their eyes met in the moonlight, and for a moment, something unspoken passed between them, something that both knew could not be acknowledged, at least not yet. Good night, Lady Tessa, he said finally, stepping back with a formal bow. Good night, Sir Kieran. The days that followed brought a gradual return to normalcy at Lockwood Manor. Lady Eleanor's health continued to improve, though slowly. The wounded men from the raid recovered, and the household settled into a new routine. Sir Percival had not been found, but reports suggested he had indeed fled to his mother's family in the north. Lord Edmund spent long hours in correspondence with Lord Ravenscroft, rebuilding the trust between their houses. No formal mention was made of Sir Giles as a potential match for Tessa, though both men clearly considered the possibility. A fortnight after Sir Percival's treachery was revealed, Lord Edmund summoned Tessa to his private study. She found him seated before the fire, looking older than his years but more at peace than he had been since her mother's illness began. Sit, daughter, he said, gesturing to the chair opposite his. When she had settled, he continued, "I owe you an apology." Surprised, Tessa remained silent, waiting for him to elaborate. "I arranged your betrothal to Sir Percival believing it would secure your future and strengthen our house." He sighed heavily. "Instead, I nearly bound you to a dishonorable man who would have made your life a misery. You couldn't have known his true nature, father." "Perhaps not. But I could have consulted your wishes more carefully." He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Your mother has been speaking with me about this at length. She reminds me that our own match, though arranged, was built on mutual respect and grew into something more. I failed to ensure the same for you." Tessa felt tears prick at her eyes, moved by this unprecedented vulnerability from her usually stern father. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Lord Ravenscroft has suggested his younger son might visit, with no formal obligations on either side. Simply to become acquainted." He watched her face carefully. "Would this be acceptable to you?" She considered this. "Yes, I think it would. Sir Kieran speaks highly of Sir Giles's character." "Does he?" Lord Edmund's eyebrows rose slightly. "Sir Kieran seems to have become quite the trusted adviser in our household." Tessa felt her cheeks warm but met her father's gaze steadily. "He has proven his loyalty and honor repeatedly, father." "Indeed he has." A thoughtful expression crossed his face. "You know, Tessa, alliances come in many forms. Some through marriage, others through loyal service." "What are you saying, father?" "Only that I've observed how Sir Kieran looks at you when he thinks no one notices. And how you look at him." He held up a hand as she began to protest. "I'm not blind, daughter, nor am I as rigid in my thinking as you might believe. Your happiness matters to me." Tessa stared at her father, scarcely able to believe what she was hearing. "But his rank, his lands, are modest, yes. But a man of true honor is worth more than vast estates held by one who lacks integrity." He smiled slightly. "Besides, I have no heir but you since your brother chose the king's service over returning home. Whoever you marry will eventually steward these lands." "You would consider Sir Kieran?" she asked, hardly daring to hope. "I would consider any man who has proven himself worthy of you. Meet with Sir Giles when he visits. If you find him suitable, I will support that match. But if not—" He shrugged. "There are other possibilities we might explore." Tessa rose and moved to embrace her father, something she hadn't done since childhood. "Thank you," she whispered. He patted her back awkwardly, clearly moved but uncomfortable with the display of emotion. "Yes, well. Your mother would have my head if I made the same mistake twice." He cleared his throat. "Now, go tell her what we've discussed. She's been fretting about this for days." Tessa hurried to her mother's chamber, her heart lighter than it had been in months. She found Lady Eleanor sitting up in a chair by the window, a small embroidery frame in her lap, the first time she had felt strong enough for such work since her illness. "Mother," Tessa began, then stopped, seeing the knowing smile already forming on her mother's lips. "You knew what father would say." "I suggested it, dear. Sometimes men need help seeing what's right before their eyes." She set aside her embroidery. "Your father values loyalty and courage above all else. Sir Kieran has demonstrated both in abundance. But nothing is decided yet. Sir Giles will visit, and perhaps you'll find him a suitable match. Or perhaps not." Lady Eleanor's eyes twinkled. "I've lived long enough to recognize true feeling when I see it, daughter. The way you look at Sir Kieran speaks volumes." Tessa sat beside her mother, suddenly overcome with emotion. "I never thought father would allow me to follow your heart." Lady Eleanor took her hand. "Your father loves you, Tessa. He may express it through concern for alliances and suitable matches, but beneath that gruff exterior beats a heart that wants your happiness. And you, mother? Are you truly recovering?" "Slowly, yes. Each day brings a little more strength." She squeezed Tessa's hand. Enough to see my daughter properly matched, at least. Later that day, Tessa sought out Sir Kieran, finding him in the training yard instructing some of the younger guards. She watched from the shadow of an archway as he demonstrated sword techniques, patient and thorough in his instruction. When the session ended, she stepped forward, drawing his attention. "Lady Tessa," he greeted her with a formal bow, though his eyes warmed at the sight of her. "What brings you to the training yard?" "A conversation with my father that I thought might interest you." She glanced around at the curious onlookers. "Perhaps we could walk." They moved toward the garden, now blooming with early summer flowers. When they had reached a secluded bench beneath an apple tree, Tessa related her conversation with Lord Edmund. Kieran listened in stunned silence, his expression shifting from disbelief to cautious hope. "He truly said that?" he asked when she had finished. "About considering other possibilities?" "He did." She smiled. "It seems you've made quite an impression on my father." "And Sir Giles? Will you meet with him?" "Yes, when he visits." "My father is right, I should give him fair consideration." She met Kieran's gaze directly. "But my heart has already spoken clearly on the matter." The look that passed between them needed no words. For a moment, they sat in silence, the possibility of a future together suddenly more tangible than either had dared hope. "Whatever happens," Kieran said finally, his voice low and earnest, "know that I have never served any house or any cause that mattered more to me than you do, Lady Tessa." "Such formal address, still?" she asked, a gentle tease in her voice. He smiled, a full, unreserved smile that transformed his usually serious face. "Habit, I suppose. And propriety, until matters are more settled. Then let us hope for swift settlement." She rose from the bench, knowing they had already stretched the bounds of proper behavior. "My father mentioned that Lord Ravenscroft's letter invites us all to the midsummer feast at Ravenscroft. Perhaps by then, much will be clearer." "Perhaps it will." He stood as well, maintaining the proper distance despite the evident desire in his eyes to do otherwise. "Until then, I remain your loyal servant, Lady Tessa. And my truest friend, Sir Kieran. Never forget that." As summer unfolded across the countryside, bringing healing sunshine and gentle rains, Lockwood Manor gradually recovered from the turmoil of spring. Lady Eleanor regained enough strength to walk in the gardens each day, supported by her daughter's arm. Lord Edmund rode his lands with renewed vigilance, accompanied often by Sir Kieran, whose counsel he increasingly sought on matters of security. Sir Giles visited as promised, spending a week at Lockwood Manor. He proved to be exactly as Kieran had described, scholarly, gentle, and far more interested in Lord Edmund's manuscript collection than in forging a marriage alliance. After observing Tessa and Sir Kieran together, he quietly spoke with Lord Edmund, releasing both families from any expectation of a match between their houses. By the time the midsummer feast at Ravenscroft approached, Lady Eleanor was well enough to make the journey. The household prepared with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. This would be their first return to Ravenscroft since Sir Percival's treachery had been exposed. On the morning of their departure, Tessa found herself alone with her mother in the garden, gathering fresh herbs to take as a gift for their hosts. "Nervous, daughter?" Lady Eleanor asked, noting Tessa's distraction as she repeatedly cut the same lavender stems. "A little," Tessa admitted. "It feels strange to return there under such different circumstances. Life rarely follows the path we expect." Her mother smiled. "But sometimes the unexpected turns lead us to greater happiness than we could have imagined." Tessa thought of Kieran, of the quiet understanding that had grown between them over the past months, nurtured by shared danger and mutual respect. "Do you think Father will speak with Lord Ravenscroft about the possibility we discussed?" "I believe he intends to, yes. Though matters of the heart should never be rushed." Lady Eleanor patted her daughter's hand. "Patience, Tessa. All is unfolding as it should." The journey to Ravenscroft took 2 days, with an overnight stay at a monastery along the route. As they approached the familiar towers of the castle on the second afternoon, Tessa felt a strange mixture of apprehension and anticipation. This place that had once represented an unwanted future now held different possibilities. Lord Ravenscroft greeted them in the courtyard, his genuine warmth dispelling any lingering awkwardness. Sir Giles stood beside his father, offering a friendly smile to Tessa that held no resentment for her unspoken rejection of a potential match. "Welcome, my friends," Lord Ravenscroft said, embracing Lord Edmund like a brother. "Your presence honors us, especially after recent events." "The past is behind us," Lord Edmund replied firmly. "Our houses remain friends, as they have for generations." The great hall of Ravenscroft Castle had been transformed for the midsummer feast, with fresh greenery adorning the stone walls and tables arranged in a great U-shape to accommodate the many guests. Tessa, seated between her mother and Sir Giles, found herself repeatedly glancing towards Sir Kieran, who sat further down the table with the other knights. As the evening progressed, with course after course of summer delicacies served and wine flowing freely, the initial formality gave way to genuine celebration. Minstrels played, and eventually, space was cleared for dancing. Sir Giles, proving himself a true friend, ensured that Tessa and Kieran were paired for one of the courtly dances that required changing partners. "You look beautiful tonight," Kieran said softly as they moved through the steps that briefly brought them together before separating again. "And you look quite handsome," she replied, noting how his best tunic and newly trimmed hair transformed his usual warrior's appearance. "My father spoke privately with Lord Ravenscroft this afternoon." His eyes widened slightly. About several matters, I believe." She smiled as the dance brought them together again. He seemed pleased with the conversation when he returned. Before Kieran could respond, the dance required them to move apart once more, and by the time it ended, they were with different partners. Throughout the evening, Tessa noticed her father and Lord Ravenscroft in deep conversation, occasionally glancing in her direction or Kieran's. Later, as the feast began to wind down and older guests retired, Tessa found a moment's respite on a balcony overlooking the castle gardens. The night air was warm, fragrant with summer blooms, and the moon cast silver light over the formal paths below. "May I join you?" came Kieran's voice from the doorway. She turned, smiling. "Please do. It's a beautiful night." He moved to stand beside her at the stone balustrade, close but not touching. "Your father spoke with me earlier." Her heart quickened. "What did he say?" "He asked about my intentions toward you." Kieran's voice was soft, almost wondering. "He said that Lord Ravenscroft has offered to grant me lands of my own, a small estate that borders Lockwood Manor. A reward for exposing Sir Percival's treachery, he called it. And these lands would make you a suitable match for the daughter of Lord Edmund Lockwood." His eyes met hers in the moonlight. If that daughter were willing. Tessa felt tears of joy spring to her eyes. "More than willing, Sir Kieran." He reached for her hand then, his touch gentle but certain. "I have loved you since that night in the antechamber, when you spoke of cathedrals and libraries instead of household management. And I have loved you since you defended that servant boy at the feast, when others would have looked away." She squeezed his hand. "My brave, honorable knight. Not nearly good enough for you," he said softly, "but determined to spend my life trying to be." The sounds of the feast continued behind them, but in that moment, they existed in a world of their own making, a world built on respect, courage, and the quiet certainty of hearts that recognize their match. "When?" she asked simply. "Harvest time," your father suggested. "When the summer's bounty has been gathered and before winter sets in." He smiled. "He's a practical man, your father." With a surprisingly romantic heart beneath that stern exterior. Tessa glanced toward the doorway, ensuring they were still unobserved. "I should return before my absence is noted." Kieran nodded, reluctantly releasing her hand. "Of course." But before she could move away, he spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. "Tessa." The sound of her name without title on his lips sent a shiver through her. "Whatever comes, know that my heart and sword are yours, from this day until my last." In the great hall of Lockwood Manor, transformed by autumn garlands and countless candles, the wedding feast rivaled any in memory. Knights and ladies filled the tables, representatives from allied houses joining in the celebration of a union that had grown from the ashes of betrayal. Lady Eleanor, seated in a place of honor and stronger than she had been in months, watched with quiet satisfaction as her daughter danced with Sir Kieran, now Lord Kieran, by grace of his new lands. Around them, guests laughed and drank, celebrating not merely a marriage but the triumph of honor over treachery, of genuine feeling over cold alliance. "You look pleased with yourself," Lord Edmund said, taking the seat beside his wife. "As well I should be." She smiled at him fondly. "Our daughter has found what we found, Edmund, a partnership built on mutual respect. What greater gift could we give her?" He harumphed, though his eyes remained fixed on the happy couple. "She could have had a greater title. And a lesser man." She patted his hand. "Admit it, you've grown fond of him." "He's proven himself worthy of her," Edmund conceded. "And of Lockwood, when the time comes." As the music ended, Tessa and Kieran approached the high table, their faces flushed from dancing and happiness. "Are you tired, mother?" Tessa asked, noting Lady Eleanor's pallor despite her smile. "A little, perhaps. But too content to retire just yet." She reached out, taking both their hands in hers. "I wanted to see this day, and now I have. My cup overflows." Kieran bowed over her hand. "We owe our happiness to your wisdom, my lady." "Nonsense," she replied, though pleased. "You found each other through your own heart's recognition. I merely helped clear the path a little." As the celebration continued around them, Tessa glanced at her new husband, finding his eyes already on her, warm with an emotion that needed no words. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, knight and lady, bound not by arrangement but by choice, by honor, and by love that had proven stronger than duty. Outside, the harvest moon rose over Lockwood Manor, bathing the ancient stones in silver light. Inside, candles blazed against the coming winter darkness, illuminating the faces of those gathered to celebrate a union that promised a future brighter than either bride or groom had dared to hope for in those first uncertain days of spring.